Welcome back to the Defying the Odds podcast. Today we are grateful to have Dahria Beatty on as a guest. We will explore Dahria's story of growing up in Whitehorse to going to the Olympics for cross-country skiing. Join us on this journey as we learn how she defied the odds.
Anyways, so you are from the Yukon originally, right?
Yes, I am. Born and raised.
Okay, so how does somebody in the Yukon decide they want to go and I'm just going to go to the Olympics randomly? Sorry. I'm going to go to the Olympics. Or was that your dream or was that your goal or?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I had an Olympic-themed birthday party in 2002. I'm born in March, so the 2002 Winter Olympics were in Salt Lake City, and that March I had an Olympic-themed birthday party where all my friends, we did bobsledding on toboggans. My dad shoveled a rink down on the pond in the middle of Porter Creek here, and we had skating competitions, figure skating races. Yeah, and I made little medals for everything, and I always really loved competing and thought the Olympics were really cool. And that was kind of, I guess, the beginning of me understanding what the Olympics were. And then the following year, or 2 years later in 2004, I went to Arctic Winter Games for the first time. I was not a 9-year-old, and I was racing a bunch of 14-year-olds, but I just had the best time competing, and I didn't win anything, but I was just realized how cool it was to compete against people from other countries, and that was kind of the point where I thought, I want to compete against people in other countries my whole life. I want to go compete on the World Cup. I want to go to the Olympics and compete against people, not just from these northern countries, but from all over the world. And so at that point, I kind of told myself, I'm going to go to the Olympics one day. I didn't really think about the process of how you get there. I just assumed that I could get there. And amazingly, I actually managed to follow through with that kind of goal or dream I created for myself. And so that was the start of it.
So I do the math correctly. You're 7 years old.
Yeah.
And for your birthday party.
Yeah, it was my
everyone else
8th
is
birthday.
Like, I don't even know what I probably had like Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers or something at 7. And you're like Olympics, so you guys had all the events and the medals. Did you guys bring out the mascots?
No, I don't think there were any mascots, but I did make all the medals myself with,
Really?
I got little Aero bar chocolate bars and took the bronze wrapping off of it and folded it over cardboard and wrote on it, and so it was quite elaborate, and my mom made birthday cake with the Olympic rings on it to represent the Olympic flag. Yeah.
That is crazy. I've never heard of anyone having an Olympic themed birthday party, but it sounds so much fun.
Yeah.
As you were describing it, I really want to go do it right now.
I actually know of one other person, and they're also elite athlete
Really?
at this point, and they had an Olympic themed birthday party as a kid. One of my competitors from the United States.
I think we can end the pod right now. I'm gonna all the kids just have Olympic themed birthday parties, and then you're set. Wow, that's crazy. So you went to the Arctic Winter Games at 9, and you were racing against 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Is that normal for Arctic Winter Games for cross country? They just all throw you together and say just give her?
No, it's not normal. Usually, so there's a U14, a U16, a U18 category for cross-country skiing, and usually some maybe 12-year-olds go and race in the 14-year-old category. I went when I was 12 as well, and then again at 14. Or I was almost 10. My birthday is in March, like I said, and so I actually had some birthdays at Arctic Winter Games in following years, which was pretty cool. But it just so happened that year that some of the older girls that should have probably have gone weren't in the Yukon when the trials were happening, and so there was the 4th spot was open, and I managed to get it. So it was kind of a lot of luck that I even went at that age, but it was a very cool experience for me and really fired my drive as an athlete, I would say.
Well, it's probably because they saw the birthday party going on a couple of years and they got intimidated, so they didn't even show up. How did you even get into cross-country skiing in the first place? Are your parents cross-country skiers?
Yeah, my dad loves cross-country skiing. He's a very avid cross-country skier. He's out skiing most days in the winter. But my parents put me in all the sports. I was in the Jackrabbits program, which is for cross country skiing. I was in soccer. I was in gymnastics. I was in dance. I did some downhill ski lessons. I then played school sports as well. I did orienteering in the summers. And so I did multiple sports until I was 15. I wasn't just a cross country skier. That was just the sport I ended up having the most success in, enjoying the most, and also then sticking with.
Yeah, you're a huge. So I'm assuming you're a huge supporter of multi-sport athletes.
Yeah, one of the main things I tell kids is don't specialize too early. Maybe unless you're a gymnast or a swimmer, there's no need to stop doing other sports at 12, 13, 14 years old. I played high school volleyball and basketball all the way till I graduated. And so I think I'm a big advocate of you can have your main focus sport, but keep playing other sports, having those different movement patterns, being able to be coordinated if you're an endurance athlete or have endurance if you're a team sport athlete. So it makes you such a better athlete down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What point was it? So I don't know. Have you met Jeremy McCullough?
Yeah.
You have met Jeremy. Okay, so Jeremy was our first, you're our second official guest, and Jeremy was our first one because we're friends with him. And Jeremy, second year in university, he started having inklings of like, maybe I can go play professional, maybe I can play NBA and stuff like that. When was the moment for you when a dream of going to the Olympics maybe started to become a reality, or at least became like a realistic goal? Or are you just like age 7 and once you went to the Arctic Winter Games, like I'm going, they're gonna have to hold me back, I'm gonna get like arrested if they try to pull me off? Like
I'd say no, at that age I just loved competing. We would go to Alaska to do competitions with the Yukon ski team. We'd go down to BC and Alberta for Western competitions. I'd competed at Arctic Winter Games. I just was I was never aware of the bigger picture of skiing. I was never watching videos of the World Cup. I wasn't following elite skiing. I was just skiing because I loved it and trying to do well at wherever I was. And then when I was 15 years old, I went with the Yukon ski team down to some NORAM races, which are the Continental Cup Series in Canada for racing. And my coach at the time, Alain Masson, who's the Yukon ski team coach still, he put me in the older category, in the U20 category, because he said, it's great experience to start racing 10-kilometer races instead of 5, learn how to race longer. These races aren't important. And I ended up finishing 3rd in the first one.
wow.
And so there was no pressure on me that year. And then he decided to take me to the World Junior Championships trials in Quebec. Because I'd done so well before Christmas. I ended up qualifying for the World Junior Championships at 15. Wow. So I went over to Germany and represented Canada at the World Junior Championships. And I think that was the first moment where I kind of realized that I was actually good at this sport beyond just my local, grouping. I finished 25th in the world at 15 years old in one of the events. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool if I can do this and be able to travel and make this a career, and I can see where this takes me. And that was I knew that was still a very far point from making the Olympic Games, but it kind of gave me that idea that, I can go compete on the world stage. Some days I might do terribly and, there's still a lot of work to go, but some days I am going to be able to compete with the best in the world. And so that was kind of cool. That was the point where the following summer I definitely shifted my focus much more towards cross-country skiing. I chose to go to summer glacier camps to train for skiing instead of going to Europe to do orienteering races and stuff like that.
And so what summer glacier camps?
So there's a glacier down in Alberta that is skiable in the summer. They groom for training. So I went down to Alberta to ski in the summer.
So are we talking like, is it still warm, or like are you so high up it's still kind of chilly, or is it like 20 degrees or 15, like 10, 15? I guess because the snow would melt, right?
Yeah, so it does get really warm in the afternoons. So you go up there and then you get up early and you ski in the mornings because it is high enough up that it's at 2,700 meters that it freezes most nights. Oh, and so then you're skiing from 8 a.m. to noon. And then after that, the snow gets too soft, and then they regroom it for the next day, sort of thing. So there's a window of time that you have to hit to be able to use a glacier in the summer. But yeah, it does get pretty warm some days up there. I mean, when there's direct sunlight.
Because like in the summer here, I think the Yukon summers are arguably the most perfect place in the summer. It's like not too hot, not too cold, all the daylight. And I always see people on the side of the highway with like the skis with wheels. You know, you must know what
Roller
I'm talking about.
skis.
Roller
Yes.
skis.
Yeah, we use those for training.
You do use those?
Yes.
You've used those? Because I would always like seeing people go in there. Everyone's like, we've got such great Yukon cross-country skiers. They go to the Olympics, blah, 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 blah. And I'd see them going. I'm like, Olympic athlete. There we go as they drive by. So I always thought of that. But I never even knew you could even go to going on glaciers in the summer.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's limited because, you
Yeah.
know, it's expensive to be able to be up on a glacier. Multiple teams want to use it. It kind of, you have to balance it out, but we do use that as a training opportunity in the summer because we can roller ski, but it's not quite the same movement, especially in classic skiing because there's skate skiing and classic and cross-country skiing, so there's two different techniques. And in classic, you have a wax pocket in the middle of your foot that has grip wax on it, and that's what allows you to propel yourself up the hill and get that kick. And on a roller ski, there's a ratchet, so it never slips, whereas wax is a bit more finicky, and so it doesn't quite represent the motion. You can cheat a bit more on roller skis, so and the length is very different, but it is as close as you can get to skiing, and it is a very good training tool.
So if I'm doing the math correctly with everything, it's like after grade 10?
Yeah.
The summer?
Yeah.
So, okay. So then you're doing that. So you're kind of like
I was still playing other sports.
You were still playing other sports.
Yeah.
Still pushing multi-sport. But you're like, you know Penny Alexiak, right?
Yeah.
She like, I think she was finished grade 10, goes to the Olympics, gets like 4 medals, comes back, goes for grade 11. That's like you. You're like the Yukon to Penny Alexiak, or she's like
Well, not quite.
the Ontario Dahria Beatty. Sorry, not quite, but kind of the same realm. What was it like going for that and then coming back to school? Did you grounded? Did your ego take a hit at all when you like went like, oh, I'm gonna go do this stuff, I'm gonna move past school? Like,
not really with school. I mean, it was pretty easy to go back into school because I was behind by the time I got back from Europe, and so I had to catch back up on school and focus. The hardest thing for me was I had all that success in that year in grade 10, and then I put all this pressure on myself that now I had all these really high standards that what I needed to achieve that weren't necessarily realistic because I was still competing against 20-year-olds, and I'd had a phenomenal season. But the following season, each race I went into, I need to win, I need to be the best. If I'm not, it's a failure. And I actually ended up having a worse season. I didn't actually qualify for the World Junior Championships the following year. I was still one of the top 5 girls in Canada, but I didn't quite have the same races I did the year before, partially because I'd put so much pressure on myself that I wasn't really just racing for myself in the process. I was so focused on the end result that I wasn't able to get a good process. And I was nervous in November for our trials. That was in January. I couldn't figure out how to make myself eat for the race morning because I was so nervous. And so I really had to work through a lot of things that following year, working with my sports psychologist and stuff, and to find, what are the steps to being a successful athlete under pressure, not just when there's no pressure on you. And so that was a tough year results-wise, but I learned so much that following year in grade 11, and then was able to bring that success into the rest of my ski career. And in my grade 12 year, I went back to the World Junior Championships and had a great season. So
by the sounds of it, that was like monumental, and arguably if you didn't go through those struggles and you didn't have that resiliency and was able to bounce back, you might not be where you are today.
For sure, because I have to say, up until that point, I didn't really have any setbacks. I usually went and did something in skiing and succeeded, and even if it was on a smaller scale, I hadn't really encountered any problems where I wasn't meeting my goals. And so that really allowed me to see the process, and that it's not just always going to be a straight line up, and how to work through those things and use the bumps in the road to make you better. Yeah.
So if we fast forward here, you're 18, you graduate high school. Pardon my ignorance. I can't wait to hear about this. Like, what happens if, like, I know, like, professional sports and, like, you might go to university, or maybe you go to, like, hockey, go to, like, CHL or junior hockey. Like, what happens when you're 18 and you want to pursue cross-country skiing?
Yeah, so There are a few avenues that I was exploring. I ended up going down to Canmore, Alberta, where the national team was based out of, and there are three national training centers in Canada, which aren't doesn't mean you're on the national team, but it's a training group that's essentially designed to pump you into the national team system. So it's an elite training program, and I decided to move down there and join that team. I was on the junior national team, but I wasn't on the senior national team yet, so I was training with this training group, which at the time had 11 other women and 3 coaches and access to sports physiology and those sort of things that I wouldn't necessarily have had here. And so, yeah, I made that choice mostly because I wanted to stay within the Canadian system, because it's hard in cross country skiing to leave the Canadian system. It's not like some other systems that interlap pretty well to be able to represent Canada if you say you're going to the school in the States. But I had very seriously considered going and competing at the NCAA level in the US and getting a free degree.
Yeah, well, so can you explain this more to me? So is it just like political, or is it like...
The races that qualify you to represent Canada internationally aren't the same races that you race on the NCAA circuit. So it's more difficult to, you'd have to maybe choose not to represent Canada for a few years, or come back and hope to qualify in Canada over your Christmas break. And then, so it's just, it was a little bit more, it wasn't encouraged by the Canadian system at that time. It is much more so now, which is nice to see, because it is, I think, great to be able to get an education and pursue elite sport at the same time. Mm-hmm. But at that time, I would have been kind of going off the main path a little bit, and I seriously considered it because it was a good option, but I really liked the cohort of women that was in Canmore training, and so ultimately that drew me there, and I'm happy with my decision. I'm working towards an undergrad through correspondence, so I still am doing school, just maybe not at quite the same pace that I would have if I had gone the NCAA route.
Well, and I think it's Queens that came out with a program for Olympic athletes, because there's somebody that was like competed for like 10 or 12 years. I think she's in her 30s now.
Yeah.
Is it the figure skater?
Yeah, Tessa Virtue.
Yeah, there we go. That's her.
Yeah, she's the face of it right now. Yeah, they have a really cool program for MBAs and master's programs. I'm currently doing my undergrad in business management and marketing. So that is a program that after I'm done this undergrad, I am looking at the potentially applying to that, because you can do a MBA for free if you get accepted to the program. Obviously, they take a small group of people, but it would be a cool opportunity to be able to get that graduate degree paid for.
No, absolutely. So you did not go to the NCAA. I'm just on a random question. Are you still eligible to go?
No, I'm not. I lost eligibility last year because they had a lot of cross-country skiers specifically coming back after a career at 30, 40 and going the NCAA route from Europe and whatnot. They changed the eligibility maybe 15 years ago, so that you have to be under 26 to be eligible, so that it's a development program.
Yeah.
Instead of having these world champions retire and then go do 4 years of university for a school and get them the NCAA title. So,
but like playing devil's advocate to the NCAA's policy, if you're a 21-year-old kid and you beat a former, like they're a bit older and stuff like that, but if you beat a former world champion, that's got to be pretty good for you.
For sure. They just wanted the scholarships to be going to developmental places instead of these people that have already reached the end of their career. So I totally understand it. And I thought about going a few times when I was 20, 22, when I was still eligible, and then I decided not to leave the Canadian system at that point. But it was definitely something that I thought about many times.
So you become basically a professional athlete after high school.
Yeah.
You're down in Alberta training year round, or is this like 8 months in the winter?
Well, I'm in Canmore for a good chunk of the summer. In the winter, I'm not usually really anywhere. These days, I'm pretty much in Europe all winter. When I was in my 18 to 20 still, I was racing the Canadian domestic circuit a bit more, and then would get over to Europe for a few events. but was racing more on the domestic circuit, trying to kind of get my berths on the World Cup. Now I race on the World Cup circuit pretty much all the time. So from November through to the end of March, I'm usually in Europe or back here for Christmas, and then back to Europe, maybe one race in Canada, somewhere in there as well.
Is it like golf where you get like, there's like a burst or like a purse if you win the race, and then like you get money depending how you finish, or like how's it work? Can you explain the process to me?
There is. It's not quite as big of a purse as golf, unfortunately. But on the World Cup, how it works is from 1st to 20th, there's prize money for each race, and there are about 35 to 40 World Cup races in a year. So if you're winning all of those, you are making a heck of a lot of money, because it's, I think, 12,500 Swiss francs for a win, and then it goes down. So if you're finishing 15th or 20th, like I have been, then you're making 300 Swiss francs per race if you're scoring points, but it's better than nothing.
I looked you up very little, but I didn't want to do too much because I wanted you to just tell me. But you were ranked this year, I think, like what, 25th in the world, or 15th? You finished 15th or 17th, wasn't it?
Yeah, I finished 15th in the last race. The last weekend in Engadine in Switzerland, I finished 23rd and 15th in that race weekend. My world ranking this year is actually not that great because Canada decided not to go to the World Cup before Christmas. So I did miss a huge chunk of the season due to COVID. They didn't feel comfortable sending us before Christmas. So we only went over starting mid-January, so that kind of, because you get world ranking points based on...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but I did finish the season with some really strong results. 15th is my personal best on World Cup. So I was really happy to be able to tie that. Obviously, I was hoping to break that result and achieve something better this year, but there's next year for that as well. And I'll just
absolutely,
keep trying.
I'm guessing you may take you through this. The process leading up to the Olympics. You went to the Olympics in 2018.
I did, yes.
And I've heard other Olympians, their stories about it, but I'm really curious to see, like, when did you actually feel that you were going to make the Olympics? Like, there's only, how many Canadian skiers get to go to the Olympics?
Well, there were 4 women last time.
4 women. So you're going to be one of 4.
Yeah.
And the selection, like, don't they, 2 years prior, basically, they start really planning it out?
Yeah, so each cycle, they make the selection process a little different. And for the 2018 Olympics, they actually made it possible for you to qualify fully the season before. So I met their selection criteria for the Olympics in February of 2017. So essentially exactly 1 year before the Olympics, I met the standard for them to be able to select me if they wanted to. So at that point, I kind of knew that there wasn't going to be 4 other women meeting that criteria in Canada, and so that I would have a spot on the Olympic team.
Because as soon as you said if they wanted to, instantly, I don't watch it, but I was thinking like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. There's like 10 people. Who's going to get the rose if they all...
So there's a standard, and if 7 people meet it, there's still only 4 spots. Okay. So, because there was a standard that Canada set to select their team, and I met that standard, and only Emily Nishikawa, also from the Yukon, who you should get on your podcast. She's living back here now and becoming a teacher.
You're okay. Yeah. we didn't want to overload skiers. Spoiler coming up, she's going to be in the 2nd season. We're going to try to get her after.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But you qualify for the Olympics. What was your... So... much smaller scale. If you like pass a test, or like when you graduate university or get a job, just like, yay, celebratory. What did you do to celebrate when you're like, I'm going to the Olympics, I'm going to be an Olympic athlete?
Well, so I met this criteria one race weekend, and then we were going to World Championships the following weekend in Finland. So I still had to be really focused, but it was a really cool feeling. It was almost this sense of excitement and relief, because it had been a goal for me for so long, and in a way it had been something I always expected myself to be able to accomplish, kind of subconsciously, but at the same time you never actually say that out loud. You never say, oh, of course I'm going to go to the Olympics, because you can't say that.
Unless you're 7
you're
years
going
old.
to jinx yourself. No, I don't think I even said it out loud. So it's always, I hope I can make it. And in the back of my mind is my mind telling myself, you actually did what you thought you could do, which is pretty cool. And it was just, it was really exciting. And it kind of, there was a little bit of this pressure that lifted off of me. That was like, okay, I'm going to be an Olympian. This is something I've wanted to do for so long, and now it's gonna be real. I have to wait a year still, but it's gonna be real.
You go to the Olympics. What was the Olympics Village like? I've heard some different stories about different things. I've heard media reports on things. What was the Olympic Village like for you there?
The Olympic Village was kind of similar to for everyone who's been to a Canada Games village.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot more security, but it really wasn't. The actual village itself, the living accommodations, they were fine, but you're sharing a room with someone and it's a single bed, and they're apartments that have been built that will be sold afterwards. So there's the kitchen of it is kind of blocked off, and it was a little bit anticlimactic, to be honest, that part of it. Canada House, on the other hand, was really cool. That was really, they put everything into that and create a really cool space that can be for both athletes and family and fans to come into. And that sort of thing, those parts of the Olympics were really, really impressive. The village itself was a massive cafeteria and place to sleep, and we had a gym in the parking garage downstairs that Team Canada had put up. So you had to bundle up to go down there because it was in a only partially heated parking garage. With all we had the full weights, and we had the spin bikes, and we had everything well set up. But it was pretty similar to any other sporting event, and even compared to just traveling on the World Cup, I'd say the accommodation wasn't as fancy as the hotels we stay on in World Cup. So it wasn't that wasn't the highlight portion of the Olympics for me. It was I think going into a next Olympics, just knowing what you're going to expect will allow you to kind of be prepared for that and be able to focus on the other things more too.
Could you bring like more mittens for the spin bikes and those
Yeah,
stuff?
exactly. I travel with a lot of different mitts, and I was well prepared.
Vancouver 2010. Did you go?
I didn't actually.
Okay.
I wanted to go. I really, really wanted to be a forerunner for the cross-country skiing, but I was too young. And also, I had just missed a month of school being over in Europe competing. That was my grade 10 year when I first represented Canada at World Junior Championships. And my mom thought I should go to school. She was probably right. But I watched it all on TV, but I didn't end up going down for that.
Okay, I was going to say that could be inspiration for it. I'm curious, what is the best moment you've ever had through your skiing career thus far? And by the sounds of it, it wasn't the Olympic Village.
No.
It's probably near the bottom.
Yeah.
What's your highlight?
Oh, that's a really hard question because I definitely have quite a few. For staying on the Olympic.
No, anything you want.
Okay.
It could be when you were 7 and you were on that birthday party and you won the Snickers wrapper gold medal, whatever it was. What was your highlight?
I can't remember that specifically. What is my highlight? That's really hard. But definitely the team sprint at the Olympics. I did that with Emily Nishikawa, and that experience as a whole was probably one of my favorite because we weren't just representing Canada, we were representing the Yukon, and we were representing the Whitehorse Cross Country Ski Club, and the amount of support and excitement behind that race that we got. So just to explain, a team sprint is 2 people only from each country, and you do about a 1 kilometer loop and then tag off the other person. They do 1 kilometer or 1.2 kilometers, and it's 3 times each, so it's about 6 kilometers total, and you go back and forth. And so to be able to share that event with her, will probably be the only time that the Yukon is an entire team at the Olympics in any sport. That was really special, and I know it meant a lot to a lot of Yukoners watching that and following that back home. So that was definitely one of the highlights of my career so far to be able to do that with her. Yeah, from a racing standpoint, that was definitely one of them. The other one would be the first time I ever scored World Cup points was at the Ski Tour Canada in 2016. Yeah, in Canmore, Alberta. So I was racing in Canmore, which is my second home. My parents were down there watching. A bunch of friends and family were watching, and I had the best race of my life. Came 15th in the world. Scored my first World Cup points, which is top 30, and still to this day, it's tied for my best ever results. So that was just an incredible day. Another one of those times where you don't really have any expectations on you, and everything just kind of comes together, and you, are able to pull something amazing out. And for that to have happened with so much of my family and friends around there to celebrate was so cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And the story about Emily Nishikawa is actually a good segue because the Yukon, I think we're at 40,000 people now, but there's not many. Why do we have such good cross-country skiers up here? Or is there like, obviously it's not something in the water, but is it just like we have really good coaches? It's winter 6 months a year, so it just like helps for that situation? Like, do you have any idea?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. We do have great coaches. Alain Masson is a former Olympian himself. He has created a really great program here, and it's been really consistent. He's been coaching, I believe, since 98 or for a long time now.
Yeah.
And then we do have winter 6 months a year. We have great trails. It's also very close in proximity to town, so it's very available for people to do as a sport. And then I think the third thing, and especially that kind of group that we had so much success, Emily being kind of the older end of it, me being the younger end of it, and Knut Jonsgaard, who was also at the 2018 Olympics, being right in the middle of the two of us, is that success breeds success. And for that whole period of time, there was always someone excelling a couple years before the next person, and we're able to pull them up. And I had a bunch of girls 1, 2, 3 years older than me. It wasn't Emily, she was too much older. I never trained with her when I lived in Whitehorse. That were at a national level, that were winning medals at nationals, that represented Canada at World Junior Championships. Janelle Greer, Kendra Murray, all these people that were just a little bit older than me, and then I was just a little older than someone else, and it just keeps bringing the level up. And we had the opportunities, and we have great skiing. We all got along really well, so we were all having fun. That kind of just created this setting to allow for strong athletes to really have the opportunity to grow to the level that you need to get to have a chance at success.
So what would you say, like, pretend there is hopefully, fingers crossed, there's like a 7 or 8 year old young person that wants to be a cross-country skier. What would you say to them? Like, what would your advice be? Just to follow your thing entirely, start with the birthday party at 7, Arctic Winter Games at 9. Like, what would you say? What would you give them advice for them to try to be successful?
I'd say definitely that there's not one path to being successful. That the most important thing is that you are willing to put the work in yourself and have fun working at the sport you choose. So if it's cross-country skiing or whatever it is, to be a successful athlete, you need some natural talent, but you also need that internal drive to want to just become really good at it, and that working hard at it is fun for you. So to find those people around you that are going to allow you to get out and work hard at what you're doing in a fun setting, and for you to truly find your passion for it. Because I think this goes for any sport, and not just sport, for music as well, and for really anything, that if you're just pursuing it and you're not, and it needs to be kind of an intrinsic drive, you have to really want to do it for yourself regardless of the obstacles, because otherwise you're not going to be able to overcome whatever there is in front of you to actually be successful at it. So more important than if you're the best or not at 10, that does not matter. That has no indication of. I was tall and I was always kind of bigger than the rest of my class as a kid, so I did excel when I was young at sport, but that's not the case for everyone. And I know lots of Olympic athletes who say they weren't even that interested in sport as 10-year-olds, or weren't that good, and they found that a bit later. But if you're enjoying doing sports because you have good people around you, and then at that moment where you do want to become more competitive, it sets you up better to be able to transition to that, whether that's at the beginning or when you're 13 or 14 or 15 even.
Okay. You what's like the craziest story you have from your journey and your travels thus far?
Well, I think some of the worst stories I have are just the
The Olympic Village? Or you
No,
say the,
no.
okay, I was prepared for that one.
It usually has to do with travel. trying to catch flights. I think one of the craziest stories I've had is I went to a World Under 23 Championships, which is aligned with the World Junior Championships in Kazakhstan. And so that's one of the most remote places I've been for skiing. It was a very interesting. We were in Almaty, Kazakhstan, which is the largest city in Kazakhstan, and we were actually racing essentially in a gravel pit that they had transformed into ski trails.
So just threw some snow on top and let go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, but Kazakhstan's pretty far east compared to Europe, and we were trying to get back to. I was going to be staying in Europe, so I was trying to only travel to Latvia for some other races, and the rest, or a good chunk of the team, there were 3 of us trying to travel to Latvia, and the rest of the team was going back to Canada. And there were too many ski bags. This always happens when you're traveling with skiers. So then they overload the plane, so they have to unload the plane and reload the plane. And so 2 hours later, we finally took off. We got to Istanbul, where we were supposed to transfer, and we'd missed our flight to Riga, to Latvia. Luckily, the people going back to Canada got their flights, thank goodness. But in Turkey, you need a visa to leave or to get into the country at all. So then we had to get ourselves Turkish visas to be able to stay at an airport hotel for the night. Wow. And we were able to be rebooked. So this was about 10 a.m. But somehow there was no more flights we could get on that day. But we were able to get our visas. And then the next day we were booked on a direct flight to Latvia. So it wasn't so bad. I was traveling with 2 other athletes. But for some reason, I go to check in and board. And just as I'm getting on the bus to leave, they call the other 2 back. And then I'm sitting on the plane, and their seats aren't getting filled. And yeah. I ask, is there another bus coming? And then, we can't communicate with the terminal anymore. I'm sorry. So then the plane takes off, and my teammates aren't there. And I don't know what's happening. None of our cell phones work in Europe at that time. And so I land in Riga, and the coach is there to pick me up, and he's, where are the other 2? And they ended up, it was a miscommunication, but then they had to fly through 2 other airports just to get, and they ended up getting in 12 hours after me. And there's been a lot of days like that where you go, my goodness. Yeah. Everyone got back to Canada before we got to Latvia. And so we've had crazy days driving through snowstorms too, where a 4-hour drive takes 13 and things like that, and definitely have a lot of good travel stories and from being on the road in Europe.
So I've talked with other people that are like professional basketball players over in Europe and stuff, and like in Canada this would seem insane, but like some of them will be like, your culture, whatever, they'll be like smoking cigarettes before they go into the game, or they'll like shooting shots. Are there any like crazy skiing stories over there where they're just like doing random stuff, or they're just like drinking heavily till like 2 a.m. or not 6 a.m. They get up for like a 10 a.m. race. They're like still like not sober.
No.
Okay.
I think you can't. There's a bunch of coaches, especially from sort of the Eastern European teams, coaches that will be smoking on the side of the course and that sort of thing, because it's in their culture. But it's definitely a sport where you can't not sleep well, and you can't. there's less of an ability to kind of just go off, say, innate talent and also just good game sense or those sort of things. You you just have to have the aerobic capacity to go up a hill for long enough, and if you're tired, sleep deprived, or smoking cigarettes, that's not going to go well for you, and you're not going to be at the level to compete there. So definitely something I really realized going to the Olympics is how much more my sport takes commitment wise, and to the things that I have to cut out or prioritize for in my life than I was rooming with in the same unit. We were in the same room as two bobsled athletes, and so what their training season looks like and the amount of off season and how long it can take them to come back versus it's very different. And definitely in an endurance sport like marathon running as well, or road cycling, or those sort of things, it's slightly different kind of the level you need to maintain to be able to stay competitive.
Well, I think like part of the sport of bobsled and skeleton is that like you have to be a little crazy.
Yeah,
like,
and it's
the skeleton. Anybody doesn't know, it's like you go down feet first, I think.
Yeah,
feet first on a small sled.
Yeah,
You're just flying.
Or luge.
And luge is head first.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, we don't know if that's a voluntary or involuntary sport. You get the same results. Like they could have the involuntary luge where they just strap somebody to a sled and they just send it.
Yeah.
World record right there. Boom, you never know. The person's screaming the entire time.
Yeah, those sports, especially bobsled, as a pilot, takes a ton of skill. The mental focus that they have to keep, but it's a very different style of sport. It's extreme focus for 40 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they say they maybe do 2 or 3 runs a day, and then that's it, because otherwise they're so mentally drained because they're so amped up for that short amount of time. Yeah. Whereas I'm doing a 10-kilometer race or even a 30-kilometer race, which is taking between 25 and for 30K almost an hour and a half of time. So it's a very, very different on the nervous system, and it's a different just totally different energy systems being used.
Plus, like if I was doing the luge or skeleton, I'd be like, don't die.
No,
like,
it's not for me.
No, I would not either. Like I would be so exhausted afterwards, just like hoping I don't die the entire time, because like they go so fast. It's
it's impressive in its own right.
Absolutely. Okay, so Dahria, you're a wonderful guest. We're glad to have you here, but we're going to do a draft.
Okay.
And we've decided that we are going to do a draft on the best overall meal. So there's 3 things we're going to draft. We're going to draft an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert. And it can be in any order, anything you want. And then we will put it up on our Instagram and our Twitter. Yeah. Thank you, producer Liam. He's always there. And you guys are going to have to vote and see which one is the best overall meal. So
sounds good.
Dahria, you, as we were talking I can't say off screen. What do we say? Off mic? We'll say it's off mic.
Sure.
Dahria, you're going to take third pick. I'm going to take second pick. And we're going to let Liam, or producer Liam, take first pick. So this is either going to be really good or horrendous.
I'm curious. I don't think either of you guys would have tried this. I know Jansen for sure, or Andrew, Drew, whatever we're going with your name. I don't know.
That's downhill. That's downhill. Edit that part. That sounds bad. Anyways.
I know you definitely haven't had it, but I'm going to start with my appy, and I'm going to go with the quail egg.
What?
Yep.
What is it? Have you ever heard of a quail egg?
Yeah, and how are you preparing your quail egg?
Just a hard-boiled quail egg, soft middle.
Soft middle, soft boiled with salt and pepper?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Can you two fill this in? What is a quail egg? Is it like a normal egg? Like,
it's like a bit smaller than like a regular chicken egg. I'd say it's more rich.
Yeah,
too.
It's a much more rich yolk and flavor.
It's really not that big, but really rich and full of flavor. I think. I think it's just a great way to like start the meal, especially getting that palate going. It'll make more sense with the rest of my meal.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. I'm guessing that's a good. I have no idea. I'm gonna go from the heart. I established during the COVID lockdown my favorite meal. It's pizza. I'm taking that as my second pick. I don't think you guys were even gonna touch it, but I'm taking it. I'm taking pizza. And Daria, you're looking at me like I'm
Much
crazy.
different route.
Yeah. No, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to have the weirdest meal. I'm going to lose this draft, but in my heart, I'm going to win.
And so is pizza your appetizer or your main course?
Pizza's my main course.
Okay.
Would have been an interesting appy.
Is it a specific type of pizza?
See, I was hoping to leave it out because everyone do you like pizza?
Yeah, of course.
Everyone loves pizza, so I was going to leave it open. But if I had to choose my go-to pizza, it depends which store. I don't know. I like pineapple on pizza. That's going to alienate a lot of voters, but it's so good. Pineapple on pizza with something GMP going local. They have like some elk smoky or elk sausage that they put on. It's really good. With like a basil drizzle. I don't know.
Keeping it vague.
I'm being very vague and bombing this. I'm just going to go with pizza.
Okay, sounds good.
Or if I had to choose like a brand, it would be like Hawaiian.
Okay.
Hawaiian pizza. That's okay.
Okay.
I'm taking the mantle from
You
you
just
for terror.
lost.
Yes, I think I did. Daria, please save this. This is going down no hard.
I'm going to go a little more specific so for my I'm going to start with my appetizer as well. And for my appetizer, I would choose a rosemary and olive focaccia bread with fresh coarse sea salt on top, and then tapenade spread to go with it, and then also a homemade hummus so that you could choose your spreads to go on your focaccia. So that's what I'd choose for my appetizer.
You're like so cultured, and we're just like cavemen.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a caveman. You're like probably cultured with that egg thing.
A little bit. I've started cooking. The pandemic has forced me to start cooking a little bit now. And
wow. Okay, so that's your appetizer.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Are you going to do your main course next because you got back-to-back picks?
Yeah, I'm going to do my main course.
Oh, God. Okay, this is going to be incredible. Okay.
Okay, so for my main course, I was going to choose a venison steak or any sort of wild meat steak. I don't have to. And with a red wine sauce, and then roasted asparagus and roasted potatoes on the side.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm choosing for my main course.
Oh, God, I'm next.
All right, Jansen, what you got?
Oh, Lord.
Ice cream?
Oh. I'm going to say my appetizer for the end because it's the worst one, I think. Here we go. So since we're doing this, we're going to go specific. Okay. I'm going to make homemade ice cream in a very good ice cream maker.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too. And for options for like lactose people, we can do like sherbet or something that doesn't have as much lactose or something like varieties. And we're going to add in, for those that like it, either like a hot chocolate chip cookie underneath with some ice cream on top, or a hot brownie, depending what it is.
Very good.
Yeah, so diabetes waiting to happen, but it'll be good. It'll be solid. Liam?
All right.
You got back-to-back because you can finish your meal now.
Oh, I can finish my meal. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. All right. We'll go with the main dish. I'm gonna go with a beef Wellington with a poached lobster tail on top, and that's gonna be my main. Jansen, do you know what that is?
Oh, I do. I like that. I have that. That is good.
That is good.
That is decent.
I'm wanting to learn how to make it. It's one of my goals to learn to cook, just because I love it so much.
Well, like if you want somebody to taste test.
Yeah. I'll let you know.
And you can put it on. I can bake a pizza crust. You can put it on my pizza, and then okay.
All right, that's what you're having on your pizza. Interesting choice. So that'll be my main, and then to finish it all up, we're just gonna go nice and simple with a vanilla milkshake.
Vanilla for dessert?
Yeah.
Okay.
A vanilla milkshake. Nice and sweet.
Okay.
Just finish it up.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Make some sprinkles on top though.
So I have my appetizer. So I had to go to Denver one time, and it was just like, not like your traveling stories, but I had Denver as an overnight, and the plane was supposed to take off, but it didn't. So I had to overnight there. I had to go to this hotel, and I was hungry. It was late at night. I went into like the pub area of the hotel to get some food, and they had, I'm going to count this as my appetizer, mini burger sliders. Like, those like little tiny mini burgers?
Yeah.
There's like 3 of them on there. They're like $12. They're way overpriced, but they're so delicious. And then they pull you in to buy some more, and before you know it, you spent like $50. And anyways, I would have those 3 mini burger sliders to go. And the meal doesn't make sense. I realize that. It's mini burger sliders with pizza.
No, but
and ice cream
it does make sense. It's kind of the diner food.
Maybe that's me. I'm the
Yeah.
diner dude. That's my name.
Yeah,
you go.
like high quality diner food right there.
High quality diner food. I like that. Oh. Okay, that's my meal, yeah. And now you're going to just blow us out of the water. I know it.
So to finish off this meal, because I think it pairs nicely with the red meat that was in the main course, I would do for my dessert a chocolate mousse with, well, either 2 or 3 chocolate mousses with a dark chocolate mousse as well as a white chocolate mousse. And then have little solid chocolate pieces to scoop it with, and then have some fresh berries on the side. So it's light but rich, and you don't need a ton of it. And that would be what I'd have for the dessert to finish the meal.
So you're a professional skier and to be a professional chef. Like, oh,
Yeah.
wow. So
Well, part of me does joke around about opening a bakery one day when I'm 55 years old and I'm done with a real job.
by the sounds of it, like as soon as you finish skiing, you're in business already. Just like roll right there, start opening a restaurant, a bakery, everything. That sounds so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think opening a restaurant and bakery is a ton of work, and I have a lot of respect for the people that endeavored to do that, but maybe down the road I'll give it a try.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's amazing. Okay, well, that's our draft.
You lost.
I think I lost badly. Unless our clientele in this
Really,
pod,
yeah.
Just
They
loves
love the
pizza
diner
and
food.
the mini burgers.
yeah, or like a ski resort bum. Like whenever I go to ski resorts, like that's the kind of food I like to eat. Like a lobster's too much work. It sounds ridiculous, but you gotta crack the shell and stuff. No, I need pizza. I need something just like to chill after.
Yeah,
a long day of
everyone
skiing.
loves pizza.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping I win in like quantity of people, not quality. That could work. Anyways, Dahria, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And just so everyone knows, she's doing 2 more pods, but we're number 1. We got her first, even though they're probably gonna promote before us. Anyways, thank you so much.
Hey guys, producer Liam here. Just reminding you to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at DTO_pod.